Hey everyone, I'm Melissa Sheketoff, host of Melissa in the Morning on WICC 600 AM and 95.9 FM, and I am also a Milford resident, and my son is in the Milford Public School District. I am so proud to be partnering with the Milford PTA Council to be able to conduct these forums. I think it's so important that we get out and we are part of our local elections. These are the people, these are the roles in your cities and towns that matter and are making really critical decisions for your schools, your kids, your families. And so we are really excited that we have some of the candidates here for District 5. Now, I do want to let you know, we did invite all candidates who are running for District 5, and this was totally voluntary. If people wanted to come in and just get to know you a little bit better, they showed up, and if they didn't want to, that's okay too. But we just wanted to make sure you knew we're not endorsing a particular party. We just wanted to give you a better opportunity to get to know the candidates before you head to the polls. So let's get started. We have Nicole Flowers, who is sitting here at the table, as well as Hanna Tedros, and very excited to introduce you to both of these candidates. So I'm going to start with you, Hanna. I was kind of saying before, this should feel like we ran into her coffee shop, by the way, Cafe Atlantique. If you maybe recognize Hanna, you guys started over there in downtown Milford, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Hanna Tedros. I am a mom of 3 kiddos. My older 2 go to Orange Ave. My youngest is still in preschool. And I think the thing about me is that I'm really, really passionate about supporting everybody in thriving. So that shows up in my personal life. I am a foster and adoptive parent. My younger 2 kids were adopted out of the foster care system, and I still partner a lot with the organizations that are supporting kids, parents, caregivers, and making sure that everybody is getting the support that they need. I also really believe in that as a professional. In my professional life, I believe in that as the owner of Cafe Atlantique. I am a small business owner. So in addition to serving what I think of as Milford's best coffee, I want to make sure that we are a welcoming community partner. And we've partnered with the high schools and helped place interns. We partner with the Bethel Center to make sure that if they have people that are looking for work, that we can at least provide interviews. And in my professional life, I also work in corporate learning. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about what are the skill sets, tool sets, mindsets that everybody needs to survive, or to thrive, not survive, but thrive in their career. And I'm really excited to bring that to the Milford Board of Ed.
Thank you, Hanna. We appreciate it. And I'm also pretty familiar with the person sitting next to me here, Nicole. Her kids go to school with my son. So Nicole, you and I, we kind of go, I guess, way back, right? Because our kids are about the same age. Tell us a little bit about yourself for people who have not met you before.
Hello, my name is Nicole Flowers. I am actually originally from San Diego, California, but I've been in the Northeast since 2010. And my family and I discovered Milford in the summer of 2019. We were here on vacation and we fell in love with a city and a house. We bought that house and we moved in right before 2020. So I have 2 young daughters. Gracie is 7 and she's in 2nd grade at Orange Ave Elementary. And then our youngest just turned 4, Ella, and she is in preschool. So I'm probably one of the newer Milford residents running for office this year. But I don't think that changes anything in terms of my love for the city, how much I love to give back. I love to foster community. You can see that in some of the things that I've done in terms of starting a Girl Scout troop. We have 12 brownies who are very community focused. I started Milford Silent Book Club, which is a really wonderful community of basically all ages for the most part, middle school and up, those who can sit and read silently. But we come together monthly to read together, and we support local businesses. By doing so, we meet at different restaurants, etc. And education is really important to me. My mother was a teacher. I have a foundation of education in terms of it being really important. It was obviously very present in our home, and I'm really excited to be running and to use my voice and to hopefully be able to serve Milford on the Board of Education.
And I know just from like a news standpoint, Nicole was somebody who stood out certainly during the budget cycle this past year, because you were definitely one of the vocal parents who showed up to the meetings and really wanted to be there. And it felt like, not to put words in your mouth, but it felt like you were more people over politics. It felt like you wanted to do whatever was best for the schools and for the budget. Talk about sort of what you would bring to the Board of Ed if you're elected.
Sure. I mean, I was very frustrated during the last budget battle that resurfaced because it felt like people weren't communicating. It felt like one side felt that these cuts were quite simple, and another side was, really saying, no, like we need, this is an important budget. Like this is what we need to advance, our education system. And I just really felt that people weren't communicating, and that's very frustrating to me because I feel that I am a very transparent person. I communicate. For those who know me, know that I enjoy talking to people. That's something that I've really enjoyed during this campaign is the door knocking, because I like to hear what people have to say. And not everyone is having the same experience. The experience that I'm having with Gracie being in second grade is a different experience than another family is having in second grade. So, it's important for everyone to talk and to communicate and to be transparent. And I think, I know that, I want community involvement. Community is everything. I think, you can learn from one another. So that's one thing I think that I bring, is kind of that mindset.
And I think too, we're going to come back certainly to the budget and talk a little bit about that and see, what your thoughts are on it. I do also want to ask, Hanna, as we're talking about what you bring, you had talked about obviously your experience, small business wise, certainly as a mom as well. And you had mentioned even trying to give, it sounded like internship opportunities to students. So talk a little bit about what your experience would be if you were to be elected to the board.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things that I bring to the table as a Board of Ed member. So number one, I am not an expert in child education, but I am an expert in adult education, and there are a lot of overlaps between those two. So I think a lot about instruction and the components of instruction and how to best set up instruction so that people can thrive. And I know in the last budget conversations, there was a lot of questioning, especially, for particular line items. So do we need support? Do we need instructional support? Do we need to focus on pedagogy? And I think those things are really, really important. Much like Nicole, I did not grow up in Milford. I went to school in Florida, and I very much can tell you the difference. The difference between a well-supported teacher that has access to resources, that has instructional support, and a teacher who does not. And so I feel really passionate about making sure that the support is there for teachers and the support is there for students so that everybody can feel secure and and able to thrive in their role.
And I know, Hanna, when we were off camera, we were talking about how I believe you had said your husband that you guys were attending these meetings as well last year. I mean, what were some of your big takeaways from the budget, and where do you feel like it maybe worked, but maybe where it missed the mark?
Yeah, we were talking about how, so my husband and I tag team a lot of things. We have 3 small kids, and somebody's got to be putting kids to bed. And so in the last budget fight, my husband was very much there to show the people of Milford that the small business community also supports education, and that having a thriving education system is important to a thriving Milford, and a thriving Milford is important to a thriving business community. These are ecosystems, they work together, and you cannot have one without the other. And I think that is what is really important to me, is to make sure that we are not thinking of these as like individual line items, but ecosystems that work together, and we really do need to make sure that we start with our kids.
So you both have been knocking on doors, and I would love to know what you're sort of hearing as far as priorities for students, what you're hearing and what you'd want to bring to the board as priorities that you'd like to focus on.
I'm hearing quite a bit about the long-range facilities plan, which is actually what really I started to engage in trying to learn more of what was going on in our community, were the community conversations. That I attended both of them, and they were fantastic. So that's what I am hearing mostly at the doors. I think there's a bit of information and that people are feeling like decisions have been made, but they have not been. I was appointed to the Board of Ed in September to just finish this bit left in the term. For a seat that needed to be vacated due to work. And so I've been able to see a little bit of what's been happening, and there's been some decisions, some work done for the long-range facilities plan. And I see from the board that there is real desire for the community to continue to be engaged and to still have a voice. So for me, that is crucial with this plan, because some big changes, some big decisions are being made. And as much as our schools are old, 60s, 70s, 1950s-year-old buildings, these schools, regardless of the age, they are communities. This is where it's very emotional. These are where our children are all day. Their friends, their teachers, their principal, their classrooms. My daughter walks by her kindergarten classroom and her first grade classroom every single day, and I know she gives those teachers a hug every single day. So the thought of a school change in the sense of closings or et cetera, this is very emotional, and it needs to be treated that way. So in terms of that, my dedication to being on the board is to make sure that everything is very transparent, everything is, communication, and really continuing to get input from our family, families, community members.
Just being very thoughtful, and just so it is clear for people, because I know it's been brought up in other districts as well, there has not been one single decision made at this point. In fact, they're in the midst right now of finding a firm, they might already actually have found one, to just do a study to see even what that will look like if we were to consolidate down schools at all the levels. So thank you for saying that. And Hanna, what do you think of the long-range facilities plan? Because again, just for people who have been kind of hearing a little bit about it, there is a concept on the table. Again, concept, they're going to really look into this study, and we're not even going to see really shovels in the ground for many, many years. But you're looking at potentially one high school, not two. 2 middle schools, not 3, less elementary schools than the ones we have now. What are your initial thoughts on it?
Well, same as Nicole, this is the number one issue that people bring up. And the question is is there going to be one high school? And I think, as Nicole really laid out, this is a process. And I think the most important thing when you're going through this process is you don't want to anchor on a solution, because when you anchor on a solution, then you start to look for the evidence that supports your solution. But I think, my goal in going through this process is to just be obsessed with the problem, or the end goal, which is to make sure we have the best education facilities for our children. And there is a lot of data, there's a lot of community involvement, there's a lot of conversations that needs to happen between where we are now and when we make that decision. And so really making sure that those conversations happen, that the data that we need to have an informed conversation is available, so that we can solve the problem of how might we make sure that our children are learning in the best facilities.
And another thing that was certainly a focus in the budget, and I think is just a focus all across the state of Connecticut, quite frankly, special education. What are sort of your thoughts on that?
I'm pro. My son is actually in special education, and he was not when he started kindergarten, and it transformed his education experience by having the right supports for him where he needed it, when he needed it. And I think that's true not just for him, but the support that his teacher gets, the support, also transforms the rest of the classroom as well. And so I think it's so critical at the elementary school level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, that we are making sure that kids get the support that they need when they need it for their particular needs. Because otherwise, you can't learn when you're dysregulated. You can't learn when you have an unmet need. And I think it's such an important thing that we invest in for every kid that needs it.
And of course, Nicole, same kind of question. Your thoughts on special education and where we're at right now and what we need to push for with the Board of Education and trying to have some of those better supports like Hanna was talking about.
Yeah, I don't think I can say anything as well as Hanna can just now. Everything she said, I echo. But I mean, a child that is in need of special education, special needs, more assistance, I mean, that child is no different than a child who does not need additional support. That's how I see it. That family is no different. So it is tough right now because special education teachers are in demand, and it is it's a difficult recruitment right now because I think there is fewer teachers available, but it needs to be a priority without question. And I do believe that it is. But yeah, no, I don't, it has to be a focus. More and more, I think we're finding that, kids are needing more in some capacity. I would personally love to see more support in the classroom. Classroom management is a huge thing for teachers, but that is budget conversations. But I support our teachers. If I could give a teacher, if every teacher an aide, that would only enhance our teachers' ability to do their jobs. So yeah.
What about knowledge of the school system, something that has been brought up by some of you, which thank you again for all the questions that we've been sent in prior to these conversations. Programming, what is being offered to kids. I know middle schools are brought up a lot with sports, after school programming, even at the elementary level. What are sort of your thoughts on what is being offered that's working and maybe what could get some more TLC?
Yeah, I know that there's been some new curriculum. I know from my daughter just being in second grade that there was a new reading phonics curriculum. So I know that that's new. I know there's been some new math curriculum that has been released as well. So, my understanding of the schools is, Gracie, get them confused.
Here, Mom, it's fine.
Exactly. Who am I talking about? Gracie being in kindergarten, really wanting to be involved in the classroom, room mom, going to PTA meetings, et cetera. So, everything that I am seeing as far as curriculum based, I've been really, really pleased with. We did have new test results come out. They were just released. There's been some really wonderful gains in the elementary level. I know that there has been gains in the middle school, but there is some room to grow there. And I know that that's something that the district is wanting to focus on. As far as sports for middle school, I will be very honest. I'm not 100% up on exactly what is happening with sports in middle school. I have heard, I believe that is a budgetary consideration. I'm all for it. I think sports, after school activities, again, it's back to what's so important to me, it's community. To be with your friends, to be heard, to be seen, to spend time together. It's so important, particularly now with it being such a digital world, that the more that our kids, I think, can be together socially, it will only help them as they become adults to be able to be social as adults. So.
No, and well said. When you talk about the need, even as they get older, I think it's great if we don't have all the answers yet. Because back to your, I'm so serious. That's my number one thing I'll even say on my show is, listen, if I don't know, I'm going to research it. And so I appreciate the honesty on that one. And I think it goes back to your initial thought, which is that we should be having these these conversations constantly. And if I'm hearing that that's an issue, it sounds like that is something that you want to address and at least be open to talking about that. So, not to put words in your mouth, not trying to do that. But Hanna, what about you and sort of your thoughts on programming, schools, whatever level that you're hearing from? Again, I know some of that's kind of door knocking, some of it is coming from your questions, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I will also say I'm not an expert in middle school sports, but I do know that part of the curriculums that were the kind of special, I don't know what the name for it is, but the AP classes, access to AP classes, access to sports, access to different after school programs is actually part of the long range planning. Because if we are able to be strategic and plan appropriately, we can also be more efficient and make sure that we are able to have programming that gives the most kids access. Because I know that is a concern, with the number of middle schools that we have, with the number of elementary schools we have, and the number of children, that sometimes we can't have as many of those special programming that we want. So although I am not an expert, I do know that is part of the long-range planning. That's
what this is for. This is so you can connect with the candidates. And I do, before we close, is there anything that you want to add and leave voters with before the November 4th election?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that is the most important thing for me is that people vote and they understand the importance of voting locally. It can sometimes feel that nothing we do matters. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter, right? The Board of Ed is going to do what the Board of Ed does. But I hope that myself and I know Nicole talk about have shared how important community involvement is to us. And how really impactful you can be at the local level. So that is my one thing that I want everybody to do, is just get involved. And involvement really does start at the polls.
All right. And Nicole, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yes. Just I echo everything that Hanna said. It's so important to get out and vote. Your vote matters. Your voice matters. Community matters, our kids matter, just Milford as a whole matters, and these municipal elections, they impact us directly. And I really am thankful to be able to be running for this seat. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to continue to meet District 5 community members and other districts. We're at birthday parties and we're oh, Nicole, is running. So it's been really wonderful to have these conversations regardless of what district someone is in, because at the end of the day, these decisions that are being made impacts everybody. It's not just the district that we are running for. So thank you.
Yeah, we thank you, Nicole and Hanna. Thank you both for your time. Again, they took time out of their day to just get to know you a little bit better and for you to get to know them. And so we thank them for their time. And I do want to remind you that, again, general election is on November 4th. However, early voting will begin on October 20th. So please take this link, share it with your friends, your families, your district, the entire city of Milford, and definitely get out and make sure that you make your vote count this year. Thank you so much for joining us.